Roblox ASIMs. We all know them, we tolerate most, love others as they flood the platform trying to replicate Dead by Daylight success using popular IPs or characters. This includes games like Forsaken, Outcome Memories, and Dandy's World to some extent. Normally, I'm not too big of a fan of these games. Maybe I'd play them once or twice, but I'd eventually forget about them and move on. They're fun for a short period of time, but I never find myself returning often. Whether that be the game is either killer or survivor sided, losing interest, or just the devs making some odd decisions in and outside of the game. So then, why am I making this video? I already told you I'm not a big fan of these types of games, so why am I here? Well, that all has to do with the clapping monkey in my head that when it sees anything FNaF related and having Ennard in it, the monkey begins to bang its cymbals like no tomorrow. So sit down, grab a snack, and get ready to listen to 20 minutes of pure yap, as I'm gonna rant about the newly released Bite by Night, and by the end of this you should be just as brain-rot about this game's mechanics as I am. And as they just released their first quality life update, I think there's no better time to do so, because I've been playing this game non-stop since release. So let's get into it. Starting with the gameplay, Bite by Night is a 1v8 game where the killer plays as one of 3 currently released characters, and the survivors play as one of 4 classes, each with unique abilities. When you first play, you only have access to Springtrap and the customer, but as you play more and more rounds, you'll accumulate scrap, which can be used to buy more killers and survivors, with Bite by Night being very forgiving in the amount of scrap it gives. And while it has been toned down from release, I managed to unlock Ennard, the most expensive character in the game, after just a few hours of playing due to the sheer amount of scrap you get every game. And even now, it doesn't take that long to get the 6,000 scrap needed to unlock them. For the sake of brevity, I'm first going to go over survivor gameplay and the class types before going over to killers, as survivors are by far the simpler characters. Trust me. As a survivor, you have 3 goals. The first is to survive till 6 AM. This is when the exit gate will open on the map and you can escape. The timer naturally passes 1 minute every 3 seconds. However, you can increase this by doing a set amount of randomized tasks, which brings us to goals 2 and 3, generators and batteries. Generators require you to do 3 minigames. You first connect colored wires, then flip breakers, and finally get cranking like it's Secret of the Mimic all over again. After you, or the combined effort of your teammates, complete this 4 times, the generator is activated. For batteries, you need to find them scattered around the map, and then bring them to power boxes. Doing either task will progress the timer by about 40 minutes. And even if you complete all the tasks early, you're still gonna have to wait to 6 AM, as doing all the tasks normally brings you to around 4. This gives the killer plenty of time to turn the match around. However, if everyone else dies, the timer will automatically go to 5 AM and you'll start last man standing, requiring you to survive by yourself for 3 minutes until it reaches 6 AM, with matches usually lasting between 10 and 20 minutes, as players dying removes an hour from the timer, setting you back each time. This, in my opinion, is a great balancing system. It makes it so even if all tasks are complete, the killer still has plenty of time to win the match, and it keeps survivors on their toes the entire time, knowing that if one of them dies, it disadvantages the whole team. Before each round, you'll enter the lobby and have a minute of intermission. This is where you can spend your hard-earned scrap on different classes, characters, or emotes. The game also has a way for you to pay Robux for scrap if you want, but like, why would you? Like, you get enough scrap from winning the round anyway. However, I would like to preface that I may be a little biased, as I did buy the VIP Game Pass, which you can buy in-game for scrap. I mainly bought it because the Game Pass gives you 1.5 times more scrap per round, so I get about 50% more scrap than normal. Even taking that into account, however, the scrap rates are really good, as it would only take you maybe 10 hours of grinding to unlock everything, which if you've ever played a single ASIM game before, you know that's a very short amount of time. As mentioned, you can use the scrap to buy different classes. These include the customer, which is the base class that you get for free, giving you a small speed boost ability and a heal that heals 20% of your current HP. This is basically a combination of every class in the game so the player can understand how it works. The next class is the medic, who can heal players for 30 HP and heal themselves. This is your support class. Mainly, as a medic, you should be keeping an eye on your fighters and healing them whenever you get a chance. Speaking of, the fighter can either parry or attack the killer directly, with both moves stunning the killer. Your goal as the fighter should be getting others out of chase and covering your teammates as they do tasks. This, however, has an added level of complexity due to the charge system. See, each time a fighter parries the killer, they gain a charge. This means the next time they attack the killer, they'll do a status effect, making them either blind, deaf, or slowing them down depending on the amount of charges. So for the best value, you shouldn't be attacking willy-nilly, instead saving up as many charges as you can and then attacking. Last but not least is the security guard, who can use cameras around the map to highlight the killer's position for the whole team, and a taser to slow them down. People like to play the security guard like the fighter, when in reality you're more like the medic. You should be helping the fighter stun, not trying to stun the killer all by yourself. Ideally, a team will consist of 3 medics, 3 fighters, and 2 security guards, but realistically that's never going to happen, due to lobbies never being full and the Roblox players, come on. While in chase, survivors can also barricade doors, activating a Pandemonium style minigame where you keep your cursor in the middle. Failing to do so leads to the killer breaking down the door and getting a free hit on you. However, you can choose to stop barricading the door at any time and stun the killer, allowing you to escape. Just make sure you have a good escape route ready, as you can't close another door for 10 seconds. In terms of general gameplay, I think it's pretty balanced on the survivor side. If you have a good team, you can very easily overwhelm the killer and keep them on the back foot. Or as a good survivor, you can loop the killer and get to the end game by yourself. But again, that's all stingent on how good the killer actually is. The game does have a few problems on the survivor side, mainly trolls who will slam doors in your face and leave you to die, and even if it was with good intentions, it's very easy to let people in before shutting the door. Don't be that guy. There's also people who think hiding in a corner doing nothing with a black skin all game will help them, when no, all killers have aura reading abilities. They can see your ass, get out of the corner and go help. I also like how stamina is such a big factor in Bite by Night, as running out of it mid-chase is basically a game over unless a fighter comes to help, meaning managing your stamina well is the difference between winning and losing. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the killers. This consists of Springtrap, the Mimic, and Ennard. As a killer, your job is to keep survivors from doing generators and collecting batteries while making sure they don't get to 6 AM, with each killer having different stats and playstyles. So let's go over each individually, starting with Springtrap has 4 main abilities. He can throw his axe, place down traps, and only when he doesn't have his axe, he can do a scream to reveal survivor locations, which in turn makes the survivors deaf and blind for a few seconds, and can do a charge, which if he lands does 40% of the survivor's current HP. But if he misses, he's stunned for a few seconds, having to regen his stamina from 0. Springtrap has a run speed of 22 and a stamina of 70. In comparison, the survivors have a run speed of 24 and a 100 stamina. Ironically, however, survivors seem to always run out of stamina before the killer does. I assume it's because survivor stamina kind of runs out faster than killer stamina. It's a weird system, but here we are. I found the best way to play Springtrap is to place down all 3 of your traps early game in hallways or areas survivors frequent, as due to a recent update, they just don't despawn. Then when a player runs to your trap, they're stunned for 8 seconds, giving you plenty of time to run over and do extra damage. After the traps are down, I recommend never holding onto your axe, as due to desync, it's very unreliable. Don't get me wrong, when you land a hit, it is a game changer. That is a ton of damage right there. But most of the time, it's more useful to be able to see the auras of survivors and charge at them than it is to use the axe. I find Springtrap to probably be the most balanced killer. His kit allows you to find survivors very easily and keep pressure on the entire game, while also feeling fair to play against as a survivor. His design in Bite by Night is also pretty solid. He's missing the button on his chest and you can't really see his chest fur because it's all the same color, which are things I really like in a Springtrap design. But other than that, it's a really solid design that really shows all the sharp parts of the Springlong suit, especially at the back with his spine. Springtrap also has a couple of skins, including a Kratos skin, a skin referencing his design in Pymation's 5am at Freddy's, and my favorite skin, the Hoax, referencing Wizard Purple Guy. Currently, Springtrap is the killer's simplest to play, and you'll see him around more often than not, with his voice acting being really good. Yeah, Bite by Night has voice acting, it's really impressive. They also have voice acting for different skins, with the Purple Guy skin probably having the best voice acting. capturing William Afton's character much more than Springtrap does. After Springtrap, the killer you're most likely to buy next is... Timmy Tickle Time is probably the most complex killer in the game right now, having 3 modes they can swap between. The first mode, Strength, is his basic kit, allowing you to deal a lot of damage, almost free-shotting any survivor. His second mode is Speed, allowing Timmy Tickle Time to move quicker with the drawback of regenerating stamina 50% slower and having 50% less stamina, while also doing nearly no damage to survivors. This mode also unlocks the Leap ability, which is pretty useless on the pizzeria and warehouse maps unless you're going for a trick shot, but is the MVP on the forest map, which I'll talk about in a bit. Finally, he has his Stealth Kit, which allows him to move 10 times faster with no sound cues, and unlocks the ability to drill into the ground and knock survivors down when you come back up. You can also use survivors like bowling balls when you pick them up, it's really funny. In my opinion, Timmy Tickle Time is probably the hardest killer to play. Sure, they have all these different modes to make them extremely OP, but it's held back via the various cooldowns when swapping. As sure, you may think running behind a survivor in speed mode only swap the damage mode and hit them would be the best bet, but Timmy's M1s also go on cooldown, meaning you're kinda just awkwardly standing around waiting. I find using stealth is probably your best bet at doing damage, but I'm sure there are players far more skilled with him than I am, as during the early game when players are predictable, the Mimic absolutely dominates, so I'm sure there's more strats later in the game. Despite all of this, I find Timmy Tickle Time struggles during the late game, at least with competent survivors. As once you know he's underground via the obvious sound cue it makes, you can very easily just keep running and Timmy Tickle Time can't land it. He's also got the least amount of stamina, which only further adds to his weakness. As for his design, I do wish they kept his coil eyes so I'd call him the Mimic and not Timmy Tickle Time. But other than that, it's pretty solid. It's probably actually one of my favorite Mimic body designs, like the power bank in his chest, probably my favorite part of it. And for his skins, they're also really good. There's one referencing the ending of Secret of the Mimic, where he's wearing Arnold's uniform, and one where he's in his security breach ruin design, which genuinely looks creepy. Like, out of all the designs in this game, that one's the creepiest. I also love how his voice acting sounds like a bunch of announcements and warnings for the employees at Murray's Costume Manor, as opposed to copying lines from other killers or animatronics, making him unique enough for our next killer to really stand out. Speaking of, last but not least, we have my boy, Ennard is probably the easiest and most broken killer in the game, and that's coming from an Ennard main. Now, Ennard is the most unique in their gameplay, as they make it so everyone shows up as a survivor, and the early game becomes a guessing game as to who Ennard might be, as their kit allows them to wear the skin of anyone you kill, starting with your own. This allows for early game ambushes and quick deaths, as Ennard can not only attack while wearing other people's skin, but also use an AoE attack where they burst out of the skin, knocking anyone around them to the floor. And even when someone dies, it doesn't show on the survivors list, which I think is a really fun twist for this character. When he's not disguised, Ennard can spawn these little minions that will roam around the map and reveal players by latching onto them and dealing damage, with the survivors needing to shake their camera to get them off. And finally, a grab ability, where Ennard extends a wire and pulls players towards them for an easy hit. This, however, is severely nerfed if you're not using shift block, as I nearly never hit it without using it, which may be Ennard's like one weakness. With all that in mind, Ennard absolutely dominates any round they're in. I don't think I've actually lost more than like 5 games playing Ennard in my entire time. They're just that OP early game, and they're really strong mid and late game, as you won't be rid of them for long as a survivor, as whenever they use the skin suit, they see the locations of every survivor, making their gameplay basically kill someone, spawn little drones, transform, find someone else, and repeat, which gets rough on the survivor side after a while. Ennard, up until recently, was the most neglected character, but with the quality of life update, they became the most loved, getting the most amount of skins and emotes of any character, having 4 skins being the Mime, Spaghetti, Molten Freddy, and Analog Horror. With the latter 2 looking fantastic, I find myself swapping between them constantly, and the Analog Horror one is actually based on something that I've watched, an anomaly report by Reach Animations, who gave permission to the Bite by Night team to use that design. It's a really good series as well, you should totally watch it. And the voice acting as well is something I really want to talk about. mainly due to the variations of every line we hear, as you can hear each animatronic's distinct voice in their lines, and how sometimes it's Ennard speaking the whole line, or they're interrupted by any number of the fun times. And in the case of the Molten Freddy skin, it's entirely Funtime Freddy's voice actor, which really makes the skin stand out. Overall, I think the killers are actually kinda balanced. Depending on the survivor in your team, you can easily keep the killer on the back foot. And the same goes for the killer. If the survivor only cares about themselves, you can very easily secure a win. And considering these are Roblox players we're talking about, their caveman brains are 100% looking out for themselves instead of working together, which is ultimately what leads to their downfall in the long run. Which leads to the game feeling really good to play as both survivors and killers alike, with both of them receiving various buffs and nerfs over the last few weeks of the game's existence. But in the state the game's in right now, it seems pretty good in my opinion, bar a few bugs here or there. Now I'm gonna jump in for a second. See, this was all written before the update. Now, I want to give you all an example of what a killer game can sometimes look like through the eyes of a medic. Just roll clip. Yeah, it's rough out there. The next round in this lobby, I was killer, I was Ennard, and I struggled to get momentum and win a game in this same lobby because of what you just saw. I eventually did win, but I couldn't do so by chasing and outsparring the survivors like Ennard's built to do. My stamina felt weaker and everything was just slower. I had to spam this tunnel with eyes and play very well just to kill the last player. Do I think it's just update fatigue and I'll get used to it? Absolutely. But I can't help but think about how well balanced the game was before this update, and now we're just doing outcome memories again. Before the update, competent survivors would still have a challenge facing a competent killer. Now, a competent killer is being bullied by competent survivors, depending not only on the map, but the survivor classes. Take that Springtrap I showed earlier. All that happened that round was the fighters and guards would stun, and whenever they got low, they'd run to me for healing before continuing to stun this Springtrap. This was the Springtrap's first game, and I'm not gonna lie, if that was my first game, I would have quit right there and then. I felt so bad for him, that was straight bullying. But finally, we have the maps, which there are 3 of in total: the pizzeria, the warehouse, and the forest. The pizzeria is an enclosed map with 3 segments: the center, east side, and west side. For survivors, I find doing the generators in the middle and the kitchen first makes it easier to deal with the killers in the long run, as they can't camp generators. For killers on the other hand, Springtrap and Ennard have the edge here, as Springtrap can very easily disrupt survivors and keep pressure, while Ennard can leave his little minions in the middle and push survivors out at the east and west side, leading to the minions to latch on survivors and Ennard getting easy kills. The Mimic struggles, however, due to how separated the map is and how many juke paths there are. The warehouse is also an enclosed map, but unlike the pizzeria, this one is very interconnected, being only separated by one long hallway with a room on the other side really only existing to be an exit and or have a rare generator / battery spawn. It's also the map where all the killers become victims of juking around this one box, which is really funny to watch happen and to do. On this map, Ennard and surprisingly the Mimic thrive, as the Mimic is able to move around quickly in this interconnected map, while Ennard does the same thing as the pizzeria. Now, while Springtrap is still strong in this map, he can fall short due to the tight corridors making his axe ineffective most of the time, but this is very easily countered by his traps and his charge. The forest, I think, is the only map where the Mimic really shines, as there are really no enclosed areas, meaning he can leap over walls and sneak up on people really easily, while also being able to navigate it a lot easier than Springtrap and Ennard. And while those two can still put some work in on this map, the Mimic is by far the MVP here. As for the other two, they're good, but they struggle due to the sheer size of the map, making good survivors able to outmaneuver them due to their stamina loss. So there you have it, everything I know about Bite by Night in one video. and this game has very quickly become my favorite on Roblox. Thanks to that damn monkey in my head and its symbols. Will I be back to cover future updates? Probably not, but I will definitely be playing the game for a long time, because I'm having a lot of fun, which usually doesn't happen with Roblox games, like, at all. As I said, I normally play them for a few weeks and move on to the next update, but I don't see myself stopping anytime soon, especially because they added dailies. Like, I need my scrap, man. But that's all from me. If you're wondering what happened to my other Roblox videos, you're gonna have to do your own research. Just know I will not be supporting the developers of those games anymore. But with that said, I've been Core. Reminder that at 10k subscribers, I'll be doing a Little Nightmares marathon with playing all the games plus Reanimal, and I'll also be releasing a video where I go over all my OCs and the stories that run around inside my head. There's so much to talk about. So if you're interested, I don't know, hit the subscribe button, get your cat to do so as well, and I'll see you in where I make next. Bye bye!